Hey, thanks for joining me again for another episode. So before I can move on with my interior cockpit and lighting, I actually need to paint the outside because I don't want to do that once I have the interior together. And I also need to set up for my lights for the engines and lasers. So what I've got here is a spot for these two engines you see right here. So I need to remove these from the sprues and then glue them into position onto the hull of the ship. And you can see they go right in this space right here with this little notch, and they fit right in there. So right here and here is where I'm going to have to drill holes for fiber optic for lighting up the engines. So I'm using a 1mm drill bit here, and I'm just going to drill down through this piece that's glued into the hull and drill all the way through the hull until I have a hole that goes all the way through for my fiber optic. And you can see here that I've drilled all the way through, and now I've got both engine holes drilled out. And then here's a piece of 1mm fiber which slides nice and tightly inside there. So the LED will go on the back side of the fiber and just light it up red for the engines. So moving on here, this is the front of the hull. We got my two laser spots here, and here's the two laser cannons here, which glue into those holes in the front of the hull. So what I need to do is drill out the center of these little cannons and run fiber through them as well so that the lasers can fire. So I'm using a 1/2 mm drill bit here, and very carefully and slowly drilling all the way down through the center of the cannon. As you can see right here, I've now drilled both of them out all the way through. So then I need to drill out the cannon area here. I'm using a 1mm bit. Since the entire cannon just fits inside, it doesn't need to be the same millimeter. So I've got those drilled out with 1mm bit, and then I can just remove the laser cannons from the sprues here, and then I can just glue the laser cannons into position inside the holes here on the front of the hull. So I've got them both glued into place here, and you can see the holes drilled out through the center of them. And then I've got some 1/2 mm fiber here, which I'm just gonna run right down through the center of the laser cannon. So I've got a piece of fiber run in each cannon running out the back here, and I'm just temporarily hooking them up to a green LED, and you can see the light coming through the front, making it look like they're firing. So now we've got the two laser cannons and my two engines drilled out for fiber optics, and I'm going to have to at some point do some light blocking on the inside. But again, moving on here, I have these two spots here which have these two greeblies that just attached to the front, which I'm removing from the sprues here. Then I'm just going to put some little drops of super glue into this little recessed area so that I can take this greebly and just glue it into position. So I've got both of these little greeblies glued into position, and it's time to move on to some more photo etch detailing of all this photo etch you see here. And I've got this instruction sheet that shows where all this photo etching attaches to on the hull. So where these pieces go and all these pieces go, there are some raised detail areas on the kit itself, plastic raised areas. So I'm going to have to remove those areas, shave them off, and sand it down so that I can attach the more detailed photo etch pieces. So I've gone through and I've shaved off all the raised areas and smoothed it out. so that I'm ready to then attach my photo etch pieces, which will look more detailed and real. And you can see this photo here, all the areas that I removed, a before and after shot. So I'm going to start out with these two little pieces here which go on the front towards the bottom. And then I'm just carefully putting a drop of glue on the back side of the photo etch. And then I'm just going to glue it into position in the exact spot where it needs to be to match the filming miniature. And it just is secured like so. Then I'm going to move on to this little piece here which goes in the bottom front portion. And now I've gone through and attached all the pieces. You can see here everything that's glued into position to add that extra depth of detailing to the hull of the ship. So with the rear, we've got the same thing. We've got these little pieces around here that I need to shave off, these little spots that need to be shaved, and up here that I need to shave, and here to add some photo etch. So I've shaved it all clean, just like on the front side, and it's time to start putting some photo etch around. You can see in this photo here the areas that I shaved off. So the back goes on the back here, obviously. So first I'm going to cut that off before I continue on with the photo etch and glue that in place. So I've got the rear hatch glued in place now because that uses some photo etch as well. So this piece goes in the middle, and you can see these other little pieces that I've attached so far for photo etch. Now it's time to move on to these little pieces around the closing hatch right here. So these little guys actually require some folding before they can be attached to the hull of the ship. So I'm going to carefully remove them all, and then with an X-Acto blade I'm going to carefully bend them into position and hold it here with my tweezers, bend this flap over. It's a little tricky because it's so small. Come on. And then bend this end over. And then I need to put a little drop of super glue in each side here, because then I'm going to finish by taking my blade. Oh, love working with these little suckers. Hold it again with my tweezers, and I'm going to push this end down flat and glue it into position. And I'm going to do the same thing with this side here. Then these pieces get glued on to the back side right at the hatch, like so. I'm going to glue this first one into position here. Get my putty off of there that I was using to hold it. Alright, so I've got all of them attached around the outer edge, all the little teeny pieces of photo etch all around the back hull of my TIE fighter, as you can see here. Now the top hatch also uses a little bit of photo etch, this little piece and a couple pieces here, and then these go on the inside of the hatch. So I'm going to start by removing the hatch and glue the flat photo etch on the top. And then I had to fold all these other pieces of photo etch and glue them to the inside of the hatch where they kind of attach like so. Now I also noticed in my photo etch I missed this piece right here, which these little pieces glue on to the little points here. This whole assembly goes on the back wall of the cockpit. So I've glued all those little pieces into position, which adds some nice depth. And this whole thing will glue right to the back wall here of the cockpit. And I sprayed it with some primer and painted it a little, and now I've glued it into position in the back wall of the cockpit. Just a little detailing. And you can see it here in this angle. So moving on with the hull, now that I have all the photo etch over the front and rear of my TIE fighter, I shot them with some primer. And you can see how they look here with all the photo etch, how it adds nice depth and detail. And same with the top of the top hatch here. And I've also sprayed the inside black for light blocking when I put all my lights inside. So I've sprayed this with a Tamiya Haze Gray, which online said was a close match to the TIE Fighter Gray. I am not too happy with it. I think it's a little bit dark, at least for my taste. And when it comes to the TIE Fighter, I think it's really more of a preference than anything else as far as the shade. But while it's painted, I'm going to take my little 0402 flickering red LED here, and I'm going to just do a little test to see how it looks in the engine portion of the ship. And you can see it right here. There's no fiber in there, that's just putting it to the hole. So I may just do that rather than use fiber, not sure yet. So again, I'm not thrilled with this shade of gray for the TIE Fighter. So I have repainted it with this gray here, which is actually a gray primer from Walmart. And I actually like the shade. It's very similar to the gray seen in the movie. And I'm pretty happy with how this looks. Again, it's more of a personal preference, I think. You know, the colors are all based on lighting in the movie and such. And I've also re-sprayed my wings here, as you can see. And even after spraying them, you can still see the depth and detail here from when I sprayed it all black first. So I've got these photo references of the actual filming miniature you can see here. And there's little areas all around the ship with some darker gray that are painted, as you can see. So I'm using these photo references to go around and detail my hull. So I'm going to start out with this neutral gray Tamiya XF53, and I'm going to start out with my wings here and just do the little areas that I see in the photo reference from the filming miniature. And I'm just going to start going around and paint the little areas to match the filming miniature. So I've got this one painted, these little areas here, these little squares here, this one over here. And I've painted both of them now, the little spots of a darker gray, which you can see it's subtle, but it does stand out. Then I'm going to go ahead and start painting the areas on the hull that are a bit darker gray, and I'm going to start with these details on the side of the front portion of the hull and just go around till I get to the inside here, the cockpit. This is all of a darker gray. Then I'm going to continue on to the back of the hull and just start adding the darker gray to any areas that need it to match the filming miniature. And the hatch also has these few spots here. And I noticed in the photo reference, if you look here when I zoom in, there's these little patches of gray raised areas around the top. They go here and around the bottom here. So I have this little strip of styrene I cut, and I painted it the same neutral gray, and I'm going to cut little pieces off and glue it around the hatch. And I've done that now, as you can see here, and I've glued them all into position so that it's more accurate to the filming miniature. And then I've also gone and sprayed the frame of the cockpit Tamiya German gray, and then that will just sit right on the front like so. So I've given all of these a coat of clear gloss, because now at this point I'm going to start going through with the German gray and just do a bit of a wash down the panel lines just to make them pop and stand out a little bit. So I'm just going to put them in there, then wipe away some of the excess, just leaving nice gray inside the panel lines just to add a little separation. And you can see this side has no wash and that side has the wash. You can see how it just kind of makes those panel lines pop. So I've gone through and done that to the entire rear hull of the ship, and then I've also gone around and done it to the entire front hull of the ship and the sides. So now I'm taking some Tamiya clear orange and painting just the tips of the laser cannons, the orange color that you see in the movie, and I've got those done and painted here, as you can see. So now I've gone and I've sprayed it all with a flat coat to seal it all in, and at this point this is what she's looking like. So I'm happy with the way it's turned out so far in the painting. So at this point I'm going to call this episode finished, and the next episode I'll be moving on to adding all the lighting for the cockpit and the lasers and the engines, and then I'll install all that and then get her closed up and she'll be all painted, and then it's just finishing up my display base. So thanks again for joining me, and hope to see you on my next video.